thought for the day. A moment of self-compassion can change your entire day. Welcome to 7 Minutes for Yourself. I'm Christina Aina, and I'm so glad you've joined me for what I believe will be 7 of the most enriching minutes of your day. Let's take this time to reconnect with ourselves and improve our well-being. In today's episode of 7 Minutes for Yourself, we explore effective strategies for silencing your inner critic and boosting self-confidence. Have a listen.
Your inner critic holds you back by over-focusing on faults and failures and making you dislike yourself and doubt your judgment. The process for getting past this involves recognizing your overly critical thoughts, challenging the reality of those thoughts, and reframing the thoughts into ones that are supportive and help you expand and grow. There are lots of overlapping psychological concepts to this idea, but a similar concept is called the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. With a fixed mindset, you're focused on the problems and the failures. It's like you hit a dead end. If something didn't work out in your favor, that's the end of the story. With a growth mindset, you take the failures and try to find a way to adjust the situation in a way that may work better for you, or use the failure or obstacle as a jumping off point to help you do something similar but different. It's called growth because the process usually involves learning something new, accepting a different perspective, or allowing your mind to be changed about how you approach something. You allow for things to be in a gray area and not insist on them being black or white. It's okay to be gray. Now, everything can't be positive. There is a normal amount of criticism that's realistic. Recognizing and purging unhelpful thoughts or correcting mistakes is a normal part of growth. But what makes someone's inner critical voice overly harsh and rejecting? As with a lot of things, our early childhood experiences shape how we think, what we value, how we interpret and react to things. If you had a harsh and overly critical caregiver and the criticism wasn't balanced by praise and encouragement, you can internalize their rejecting comments and make them your own. So when you do something where you feel you don't measure up, it's like you hear what your caregiver would have said to you. Things like, "You're not finished with that, are you? You're not going to leave it like that." You may hear that when you think that you've finished with something, but you question if it's good enough. Or you could hear, "You'll never amount to anything if you don't pull it together and work harder." If you internalize that script, you can underperform by not trying very hard with things because why bother? You don't have what it takes anyway, or you might as well save yourself the trouble. The way to work through this is to reflect on your early life experiences. And this would be a great thing to write in a journal so you can workshop it. Some of these questions require some deep thought, and you may need to come back to it later. Or something may pop into your head when you're doing something else. And if so, just jot it down, maybe in the notes app of your phone, and then transfer it later to your journal. So start by thinking about the people who you were close to and looked up to. It may be more than just your parents. It could be older siblings and relatives. It could be teachers, in fact. Then think about situations where they said things that made you feel bad about yourself. What did they say? Did you hear some of those things over and over again? Which statements hurt more? Write down these statements. Do any of these sound like things that you say to yourself now? You may think, well, I don't say this. I hear my mom's voice telling me this. Well, that may be how it's coming across. But really, now it's your thought disguised as your mother saying it. You've owned it as something you believe about yourself. Another way to recognize some of these thoughts is to pay attention to when you downplay things or minimize things. Let's say you get recognized for something that you did, and instead of glowing in the praise and enjoying it, you say to yourself or aloud,
"It's only because I had a lot of help from other people."
Or,
"I only accomplished this because I didn't have much competition."
Write down these discouraging statements. Do they sound like something that was said to you or that you heard from others? I said that you can internalize caregivers' criticism, but you can also mimic the behavior of your caregivers even if they didn't direct their own self-criticism toward you. It's contagious. You can learn to respond this way by watching them respond this way. Next, you want to look at your statements. And this is a list that you can add to at any time that you recognize other discouraging thinking patterns. Recognize that you are not your thoughts. You want to observe the thoughts as merely an observation about a situation and not a declaration of fact. And this is called metacognition, when you objectively think about your thoughts. Ask yourself, is the thought helpful or hurtful? Sometimes criticism promotes progress because you get a chance to prune away behaviors that don't serve you. But things like,
I'll never be able to get what I want,
is not helpful. It's too absolute and involves fortune telling. You may not be able to get a specific thing that you want at the moment, but you can work toward getting something else that brings you joy in the end. Next, you want to show yourself kindness and compassion. And one way to do this is to talk to yourself as if you were a friend.
That concludes today's episode of 7 Minutes for Yourself. Please take a moment to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts. Today and every day with your kiddo is a gift. Enjoy it. Thanks for tuning in.